Good afternoon to you. 507 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We're making sense of the news. Coming up this hour from the Heritage Foundation, Dr. Kevin Roberts is with us. He's the president of that organization. He'll talk to us about all of the latest kerfuffles involving Project 2025. The lies the left has been telling about that plan. It's actually not just a policy plan from a bunch of conservative groups in town. We'll get into all the details there. Also, we'll talk about President Trump's statements on Project 2025. A lot to discuss. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. In terms of policy, in terms of elections, you should know that at this very moment, members of Congress are debating, contemplating, voting on whether or not to protect our elections. It's called the SAVE Act. That's the piece of legislation being debated today. The SAVE Act, which would ensure that only American citizens vote in American elections. Require proof that you're an American citizen to vote. It's currently already the law that to vote in a federal election, you have to be an American citizen, but the left doesn't want to prove it. It'd be like having speeding laws but no radar guns. It's like, you're not allowed to speed. Well, how can we check? Not sure. And the left would like to leave our elections as vulnerable as possible because they're, of course, convinced that that's the way they win, by making the elections less secure, which is really a sad state of affairs. Here is Republican Congressman Chip Roy today saying that he dares Democrats to vote against this. Of course, Democrats are lining up to vote against it because they're not looking out for us.
I kind of dare them. Dare them to vote no on a bill supported by 81 to 87% of the American people. I dare them to vote no against a bill that says that only American citizens should vote in American elections. Kind of dare them to go ahead and follow a president who has put out a policy against a bill, the purpose of which is to guarantee citizens are the ones who get to vote in American elections. We'll see. We'll see if our Democratic colleagues want to go to the polls in November, having rejected what clearly the vast majority of their constituents, even in the most liberal jurisdictions in the country, believe is right. But that's what's likely to occur tomorrow if you believe the news and you believe the accounts and you look at what the president's done and you look at the posturing of the House Democratic leadership. They are on the precipice of staking out a position of belief that non-citizens should be able to vote in our elections.
It's insanity. It's total insanity. And of course, the left answering the call for that insanity today. Let's see. I've got a couple of examples here for you. The great Greg Price, our buddy, putting together a lot of these clips today from various Democrats. Here's Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan from the Commonwealth of Virginia. She says that protecting American elections for just American citizens, well, that's basically Jim Crow.
This bill is essentially a poll tax, because I am not aware of a single proof of citizenship document that does not cost an individual money to get it, unless we are requiring every state to provide one for free, and then it's an unfunded mandate. This is the 2024 version of the Jim Crow poll tax, and we should vote against it.
Which is a Democrat policy, I should point out. The Jim Crow poll tax, we're going to stop non-citizens from voting. Therefore, it's racist? What? Also, the idea, the left has said this for years, that voter ID requirements, if you have them at all, it's going to stop black people from voting. That's their normal claim. That, first of all, is a racist assumption that black voters don't have IDs, the means to get them, the will to get them. That would be racist to make an assumption like that. Also, history has demonstrated that it's a total falsehood. In Georgia, they imposed voter ID requirements. After those voter ID requirements were imposed, turnout went up. More black voters went to the polls, not fewer. It wasn't a voter suppression effort. It was a voter integrity effort, as advertised. Of course, the left lied about it. Let's see. Hakeem Jeffries today saying that requiring American citizens to prove that they're American citizens when they vote is designed to stop them from voting. This is a lie.
Only citizens can vote for the United States Senate. Only citizens can vote for the presidency of the United States.
Right.
So this extreme MAGA Republican voter suppression bill is not designed to
Foreign national suppression.
solve any problem on behalf of the American people.
Other than the tens of millions of people who've poured into our country.
It is designed to jam people up and prevent
illegals,
Americans from voting.
No.
The extreme MAGA Republican.
Extreme MAGA. This is how we know you not to take you seriously when you use such stupid bumper sticker phrases in your explanation today for why you're voting against it. Congresswoman Summer Lee, great name, horrible politics. Summer Lee, Democrat from Pennsylvania. She says this is xenophobia.
Hypotheticals. It is under attack right now, right here with this very bill. Republicans want to throw up barriers because when people vote, they lose. Let me be clear.
No, the party that's working to prevent the will of the voters at this very moment, Democrats, when they say they want to defend democracy, there's nothing they resent more than a democratic process. They hate when voters choose something else other than Democrats being in power. This is why we're seeing the panic right now about Biden. This is why. They're panicking that the voters are going to choose the other guy. They're not trying to uphold, as they put it, democracy. They resent democracy. They resent our constitutional republic. They resent the role that the voters play in it, including in their own primary. They did a rigged primary process. They told the voters, here, eat your vegetables. This is the only option you're getting, Biden. We've removed everybody else to the extent that we can. And so Biden makes his way through the primary. He's the guy that they all vote for. And now they're saying, we're taking that away from you. What? We don't like that anymore. We don't like this. Screw the voters. They've been trying to remove Trump from ballots. Colorado, Maine. They've been trying to remove RFK Jr. from ballots all across the country. He's going to take votes from Biden. He can't be on the ballot. We can't give voters the option. Remove him. They don't like the voters. They're not happy with the will of the people thing. Even on the the Roe v. Wade overturning, the Dobbs decision, the decision left the question of abortion to voters in the states. The voters get to decide. You can't just have the Supreme Court make up a decision for everybody. The voters now get a say. The left hates this. The will of the people? That's crazy. You're going to let the people choose? They're too stupid for that. So Summer Lee here is mounting yet another ridiculous left-wing argument here and suggesting that this is an attack on voters, which that's sort of their party's thing.
Republicans want to throw up barriers because when people vote, they lose. Let me be clear. They don't want you to vote. They don't want to hear black voices, brown voices, LGBTQIA.
No, they don't want their elections rigged. They want people to vote. They want their votes counted. They don't want their votes thrown out. This is an attempt to stop voter suppression. What happens if you have a town, say, of 100 people, 100 American citizens, and then in that town of 100 American citizens, you add 50 illegal foreign nationals, and all 150 of you, no proof of who you are, you all vote. What does that do to each and every vote by an American citizen in that election? Well, it suppresses it. Does it fully cancel it out? Well, no. But it waters down the efficacy of that vote. It diminishes its ability for that citizen to express themselves and to have the outcomes that they so desire seen through in their government. So allowing illegal foreign nationals to vote in elections is a voter suppression tactic. It is an effort to undermine your voice and the size that it has in our system. So once again, she says they don't want people to vote. Wrong. The reason this legislation matters is to ensure that they can and that they're well represented.
Voices, young voices. Our fundamental access to our democracy is being politicized. And this xenophobic attack that we're debating today will make it harder.
Xenophobic, it's bigoted, it's racist. What a scam. You know, one of the best parts about living through this era, though, is just how easily and reflexively we can detect these scams. It's like Fruit Ninja. It's just slicing through them as they appear in front of you. Little Fruit Ninja reference. I don't know. Is that still a thing, Fruit Ninja? It was like a decade ago. People were slicing fruit on their iPhones.
for Americans to vote. My Republican colleagues will claim that requiring IDs is a small ask, but nearly 30 million people lack a valid driver's license, and about 15 to 18
How many of those are illegals?
million adults don't have access to documents proving their birth or citizenship. Americans don't need more obstacles. It's already hard enough.
This is a scam. This is a total scam. So of course, that's why they're taking up the argument. That's the only way they can talk about this. So a bunch of Democrats today insisting that we don't need to do anything to protect elections. Please leave them vulnerable, and that's better for us. Rick is in Frederick now on line 3. Rick, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Thanks, Vince.
Yes, sir.
I wish somebody would talk a little bit about USC 18611 C3, which was just recently in June amended, and it provides basically that an illegal alien can't vote in a federal election.
Mm-hmm.
But in the same law, it says that if they reasonably thought they were a citizen when they did vote, there's no penalty. So all these people being registered to vote very likely have a reasonable expectation that they have some kind of citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is just this whole debate about getting them IDs is just another distraction. Illegal aliens.
So you don't think? I mean, well, it's not a distraction to say that people should have to prove that they're citizens to vote, don't you think?
I agree with that.
And if that becomes the standard, which it should be, Rick, then what the effect of that would be to make it more obvious that you have to be a citizen to vote. The confusion around this issue would be diminished, and certainly the legal consequences for violating it would be enhanced.
There are certainly not enough legal resources to track down millions of illegal aliens.
Right.
Who might profess that they thought they were citizens when they voted. And by that time, the damage is done.
Yeah. Which is why we need to stop it as quickly as possible. Thank you, Rick. It's an excellent point about people who come in to vote. They're like, oh, I thought I could, so therefore you can get away with it. That's it's like a Hillary Clinton defense. Oh, I thought I could keep a private server in my bathroom. Oh, well, in that case, if you thought that, then you're totally fine. Every other person, normally ignorance of the law is no excuse. Isn't that the phrase they use? Ignorance of the law is no excuse. If you violate a law and you didn't even know you were violating a law, you can still be held accountable. But if you're an illegal alien who's voting in our elections, oh, okay. Yeah, you didn't know. Totally fine. That's all right. It's a mulligan. You'll be good. Just don't do it again. You just wave your finger at them. Then what if they do it again? Oh, they forgot. Totally fine. Next time, don't do it again. But if you forget, people forget things. They do. Try and remember next time. It's 5:20. All right, the update for you. Chad Pergram at Fox News reporting just 2 minutes ago, the House has now approved the Election Security Act, the SAVE Act, restricting voting to only American citizens. What a novel idea. The vote 221 to 198. Just let's get those 198, get a big list, and then ask them all to resign. You have no business being in Congress. All right. Let's go to Hoke in Round Hill now, line 4. Hoke, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince.
Hey,
I
Hoke.
don't believe for a minute. Hey, Vince, can you hear me?
I hear you just fine.
All right. I do not believe for a minute that the Democrats suddenly had an epiphany about how mentally deficient Joe Biden is as a candidate.
Right.
But if they had let this information out earlier, then the voters in the Democratic Party might have picked somebody, maybe RFK, that they didn't want as their candidate.
They didn't want the process to be open enough to allow the voters to pick the person.
Right. They wanted to select the person instead
Yes.
of letting the voters elect the person.
But sometimes I think on the right, we make a mistake of thinking that all of this is well planned. That they're so cunning and they thought this all through and they're so sinister. They have it all mapped out. This, I guarantee you, this is not what they had in mind, Hope. They did not want Nancy Pelosi out there trying to browbeat Joe Biden into getting out of office. This is a mess of their own design, and that's because they're taking hip shots now as they try and upend the will of the voters.
Well, Probably, but sheer stupidity and willful ignorance is a trademark of the Democratic Party.
We've detected a lot of it, haven't we? Hoke, thank you. Yeah, Hoke's right. The goal was to preclude the voters from picking the nominee. Don't worry, we'll take it from here. We've got this. The bigwigs on the left, they said, we'll pick this person. Oh, Joe Biden's mentally ill? Oh, well, I guess he's got to go. And, oh, look, this person, we've been grooming. They do a lot of grooming. We've been grooming this person for the role. We'll just slap them right in. It's not going well. They underestimated Hunter Biden's ability to hold on to the Resolute desk. Come here, son. No, I'm not going anywhere. Coming up, Kevin Roberts talks to us about the 2025 project, the lies the left has been telling you, and why Donald Trump just gave it a stiff arm this week. There's a lot to discuss. Good afternoon to you. It is 5:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We're making sense of the news. You can join us 888-630-9625, 888-630 WMAL. Kamala Harris, other than salivating at the chance to become president, was out yesterday attacking President Trump and that evil Project 2025. Take a listen.
Trump's advisors have created a 900-page blueprint they're calling Project 2025, detailing everything else they plan to do in a second term, including a plan to cut Social Security, to repeal our $35 cap on insulin, to eliminate the Department of Education,
Yay! I'm sorry.
and end programs like Head Start. And Project 2025 outlines a plan to limit access to contraception.
All right, does the woman who barely understands Venn diagrams really understand Project 2025? Let's go right to the source. Kevin Roberts, the president of the Heritage Foundation and the host of the Kevin Roberts Show, joins us now. Kevin, great to have you back with us, sir.
Vince, it's always a pleasure. I didn't think I was going to give the vice president credit for anything, but she's right about one thing. And amid all of those lies, I do think conservatives are united if you follow the messaging of President Trump around eliminating the Department of Education. Yeah. So at least she got that really good idea right.
Well, yeah, because, parents should actually be able to dictate what kind of education their kids get. It should be at the local level. You shouldn't have the federal government lording over every child in America.
No, our system is so outdated, and in fact, Vice President Harris may personify all of the terrible aspects of our education system.
Let's get into there's a bunch of pieces here, so I want to start with just what Project 2025 is. You and I have had this discussion. We've talked about this on the air before, but as I understand it, it's essentially two components. It's a bunch of policy proposals from conservative organizations here in the United States, patriotic organizations. They'd like the next president of the United States to consider these proposals. And two, it's a list of personnel of patriots who are ready to work on day one to support an incoming administration that cares about the country. Do I have that right?
A+. And I think the reason the left has gone apoplectic about this is twofold. First, they have nothing else to talk about, not just because of the incompetence and incapability of President Biden, but also because of their record. I mean, their record in contrast to Trump's policy achievements is abysmal. If you think about the economy, energy, foreign policy, every realm that you would consider, their record is worse. But the second thing is, and this really speaks to the long-term objective of Project 2025, which is to be of service to the next president and hopefully many presidents after him. And that is, he's going to make the decision on the policy and the personnel, but the conservative movement has never been this unified around a set of policies, which actually have, at least speaking for most of those items in the project, huge, overwhelming support from the center right in this country. And I think the left has really gotten scared about how organized and cohesive this project is.
Well, so for instance, one of the things you heard Kamala Harris say just there was that the plan in Project 2025 is to cut Social Security. Is that the plan? Is that one of the big planks here?
That's 100% false. If you go into the text of the plan, which you can see at project2025.org, and you do a search for Social Security, you will see that is utterly and totally false.
Utterly and totally false. Do conservatives believe in saving Social Security? Is that maybe the plan?
Well, Well, of course we do. And in fact, there are great ideas across the conservative movement. Heck, there are even some organizations and people on the center left who understand that down the road we've got to deal with Social Security so that we can keep recipients whole,
right,
and so that we can fulfill the promise we have. Harris is really getting in the way of some of those good ideas.
Okay. All right. So I agree with you. I think that, one of the things that's happening here is the left is desperate for literally anything that they can get a hold of and say, see, this is a bad thing. And they're hoping that their voters, their base, doesn't actually read through any of this Project 2025 for what it is. And I've seen tons of lefties all across social media. They're scared to death. They think Project 2025 is some sort of authoritarian hellscape en route. But I don't know. I do feel like that the tyranny is kind of already here, if I'm being honest. It's like, really? You're scared of tyranny? Well, you should be scared of what we're going through right now.
Well, I think that speaks to two lessons from this whole flap over the last couple of weeks concerning Project 2025. The first is a truism for conservatives especially. If you're taking flack, you're over the target. And so conservatives need to keep in mind that when you're taking that flack from the radical left, they're telling you what they're sensitive about, and they're sensitive about it for the second reason, which is that the ultimate objective of Project 2025 is to be a corrective to the overreach of federal power that the left has concentrated in D.C. over the last 50 years.
Yes.
And so that's really what they're worried about, because it is directly targeting the centralized power they have practically perfected, especially during the Obama and Biden presidencies.
There's a good example of this. This is actually really funny. Today, Ben Shapiro, our colleague here on WMAL, was testifying before Congress, and Congressman Eric Swalwell tried to turn that hearing into a Project 2025 argument. And it went very poorly for Congressman Swalwell. Take a listen to this.
And the country has, in the last couple of weeks, talked a lot about and Googled Project 2025. It's one of the most Googled search terms right now. And you're not going to get any censorship from me. So I just wanted to know, from your perspective, I think it would help us understand, on just like a scale of 0 to 100%, how much do you support Project 2025?
I think, like President Trump, I haven't looked all that deeply at Project 2025, but it seems that Democrats on this committee, sort of like Peter Pan and Tinkerbell, if they say Project 2025 enough, their presidential candidate becomes alive again.
And so, well, let's just talk about pieces of it, and I guess you can tell me if you support it. You probably want less bureaucracy, right?
I do.
I want less bureaucracy. You want more efficiency?
I do.
I want more efficiency. You want taxpayer money spent wisely?
I do. Congrats on becoming a Republican.
Yeah. Yeah. My parents would be proud.
I mean, this is amazing. I don't know. How many rakes can this guy step on in his political career? It's like every time he opens his mouth, Kevin Roberts. But Eric Swalwell saying, look at them. They want less bureaucracy. Oh, that sounds awful.
You know what the amazing thing is, beyond just the great humor and masterclass that Ben Shapiro has there, is the more the left spends time and money trying to, quote unquote, expose Project 2025, and people come to the website, you see them commenting, well, gosh, I may not agree with 100% of this, but I agree with the majority of it, and it's totally normal. It's a return to common sense, and I'm kind of glad that I read about it. And so, as it often is the case, the left will always overplay their hand. They've done it in this case, so much so, Vince, I'm not sure that you've seen this news today. We unearthed that some of the ads that the Biden campaign has done online in their digital campaign against Project 2025 have been in Mexico, which tells you everything you need to know about them counting, the Biden campaign counting on illegal aliens voting in this election.
Yeah, as all but 5 Democrats just moments ago voted to say that you shouldn't have to be a U.S. citizen to vote in American elections. So it is crystal clear where their loyalties lie, and it's not with advancing the needs and concerns of American citizens, Kevin.
No, it isn't. And of course, the radical left, anyone who's trying to concentrate power and hide the football, hates sunshine. They hate transparency. Yeah. What the American people are telling us, not just conservatives, but as you know well because of what you do every day, people in the center and even a growing number of people on the center left are saying, we just want our country back. We just want to wake up in a normal country, and I think that's ultimately the goal of Project 2025.
I do also want to reflect on something what's unusual about this project is normally in Washington you don't lay out policy prescriptions before elections. That's forbidden. You're not supposed to do that, and the reason for that is because then the other side can then attack you. It's the reason why for so many years when Republicans would say, we got to repeal and replace Obamacare, they wouldn't actually tell you what the replacement was, because the last thing you want to do is draw a line in the sand and say, this is what we're interested in doing, and then give the other side a chance to attack it. So one of the features here, if we're being honest, Kevin Roberts, which of course we are, is this is just unusual in Washington for anybody to come up with policy proposals ahead of an election.
It is unusual. We knew when we did that, speaking on behalf of all the 110 organizations that are part of it, that the left at some point would go apoplectic. But there's an advantage there, which is to see how they would react now, which gives us the opportunity to lay out the plan. But let me make this important point real briefly, and that is the reason for doing that early is because our base, the conservative grassroots who are united around our standard bearer, President Trump, we're saying that in addition to the great leadership and record of President Trump, we also want to see what a possible governing agenda will look like. And I think having that plan has been very unifying for the conservative base, and I think it's going to bode well, not just for President Trump, but for conservatives up and down the ballot this November.
Okay, so let's talk about President Trump specifically, because clearly what he's looking at in the political landscape is certainly a lot of advantages right now. You have Joe Biden in his campaign self-immolating. President Trump, his message is very appealing. People are comparing the two campaigns, having the two candidates having lived under both of their presidencies and going, man, I really preferred the Trump years. These are all things working to Trump's advantage. But in terms of the things he can't control, the outside stuff, the Biden campaign, as you noted, Kevin Roberts, has seized on Project 2025, distorted it beyond recognition, and is campaigning against it as if it's an extension specifically of Trump's policies. And that has led Trump himself to distance himself to some extent from Project 25 this past week. He claimed on Truth Social that he, quote, knows nothing about Project 2025. He says he has no idea who's behind it, and then he went on to wish the people who are involved in the project well. Can you talk about, first of all, your reaction when you see President Trump say this and what you envision as being behind it tactically?
Well, I think it's the sign of a great leader who understands he's in a terrific political news cycle. He's run a really good campaign from start up to this point, and the left's mischaracterization of Project 2025 had become a liability. I think we've seen that really turn around in the last few days since that statement. So no hard feelings from any of us at Project 2025 about the statement, because we understand Trump is the standard bearer and he's making a political, tactical decision there. But the second thing is we also have to understand that it's an opportunity for us to be able to clarify and explain. The media, including some left of center outlets and shows, have given us a lot of opportunities to clarify and explain. They don't cover it fairly, but the really interesting thing that's happened since last Friday when President Trump made that statement is that we have been able to go out and explain all of the falsehoods, just outright lies, mostly from the president and the vice president, and more Americans are realizing, I really like this idea. This is a good set of responsible, rational plans, and ultimately the politics are going to work out because this campaign has been so favorable for President Trump, in part because of his clarity, but also because the American people are ready for a return to normal, which we experienced when he was in office.
And this week, you saw that the Republican agenda was put out, which will be introduced, of course, officially next week at the Republican National Convention. We see some reporting that President Trump himself had a hand in writing it and edited it, and it's in all capital letters, which indicates it probably was actually Trump's writing. And it's out now. To what extent would you say that it synthesizes in any way with Project 25? Are there elements that you feel like, man, I wish they had included this? I noticed that there wasn't, some sort of passionate defense of life built into it, which I would have liked to see. How do you view the policies that they put out versus what Project 2025 is proposing?
Well, the overlap is tremendous. In fact, if you compare three documents, Project 2025, the Republican platform, which President Trump had a really strong hand in, which is good in terms of his political senses and positions, as well as the policy agenda that's on his campaign website, Agenda 47. The overlap, as you might imagine, is significant. There are some quibbles and differences of opinion here and there, which not only is okay, but it's actually good. We're going to be able to sort those out once the presidential administration declares what their priorities are. But the key thing is this. If President Trump is elected, regardless of what percentage of Project 2025 he adopts, uses, decides not to use, the people he hires, what's going to happen is that the border will be closed, the economy will be revitalized, the Green New Deal will come to an end, we will have tremendous energy, not just consumption, but production. And I think what you're going to see is the beginning of a golden era of conservative reform, not just because of President Trump, although he deserves most of the credit, but because the rest of the conservative movement has realized this is the moment, if we have the leader in the plan, that we're able to begin to undo all of the wreckage of the radical left of the last several decades.
And then on the personnel side of things, which is what you're talking about here, all the Americans who want to contribute to this great restoration of our country, do you get the impression that that an incoming Trump administration is going to be relying, at least in part, on this database of great personnel that you've put together?
Without being presumptuous, knowing that the president and his advisors are going to make those decisions, the quality of those people, more than 10,000 highly credentialed people, very aligned with how Trump sees the world. They're great American conservatives, most of them from outside Washington, will likely be offered roles in the administration. That's ultimately up to the president and his advisors, obviously. But these are people who are saying, I'm willing to be of service for your agenda for this country, just like you are as our leader. And I can't do anything but think that that's going to work out well for many of them.
Yeah, and at the bare minimum, they're not going to undermine them like so many others did in the past. Thank you very much. Kevin Roberts from the Heritage Foundation, sir. Always nice to talk to you. Really appreciate that.
Thanks, man.
All right, let's go to the phones. Donna's calling in from Frederick, line 3. Donna, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, good afternoon, Vince. I keep thinking it's a big club and you ain't in it. And let me tell you why I came up with that. I remember Agenda 2021, which implemented a lot of the UN globalist things. And, you know, they've got the turd. They polish it up so it's friendly and sustainable and, you know, worldly.
Yeah.
And so they've got a new agenda, Agenda 2030, and then beyond that, because they're always moving goalposts around, they have Agenda 2063, which basically targets Africa.
How could they have Agenda 2063? I thought the world was going to end in 10 years. How are they planning that far ahead?
It's Davos. You know, it's a World Economic Forum. They never shut up. They never stop.
And they never make sense.
I think and we need to be mindful of this, all of us, because the threat never goes away. They don't stop, so we shouldn't.
Well, you're right about the 2030 thing. I mean, this is the Biden administration. First of all, the United States is paying the whole UN salaries, and it's the most demented thing ever, all this globalist garbage.
Yep.
And then when it comes to the United States, what does the Biden administration want for us? To be out of our internal combustion engines by 2030. They're trying to, you know, spread misery. Thank you, Donna. Donna's exactly right. Forget Project 2025. That sounds fantastic. Agenda 2030, that's a hellscape. And the right would do well to be more like Donna by bringing that up and confronting it. Oh, boy. Oh, this is great. The White House is now saying George Clooney has less stamina than Joe Biden. Really? That's your response? We'll cover it tomorrow on the Vince Coglianese Show. The great one, Mark Levin, up next.